Alright, this is Roger with igadgetgeek, and I have another video review. This time it is going to be kind of a comparison video between some of the top devices on AT&T. Now basically what I want to do first is just kind of give a size comparison between all three of these. To kind of give you an idea through screen, we have a 3.5 inch display on the 4S, a 4.7 inch display on the One X, and a ginormous 4.8 inch screen on the Samsung Galaxy S3. Now as far as the footprint of themselves, the One X and the S3 are basically about the exact same size in footprint as far as height and width. Very close, and there's really not that much of a difference in screen size. You have 4.7 to 4.8, so not a huge difference. But both of these do in fact dwarf the 3.5 inch screen on the iPhone 4S, as well as their footprint. So you can see by placing the 4S on top of the One X or the S3, it is considerably smaller device overall. Now the main difference here between these, of course, is the different operating systems, where both of the One X and the S3 both run Android ice cream sandwich. The iPhone 4S is running iOS. Alright, so let's go ahead and dive into some of the major differences here. Of course, you know, the operating systems are of course totally different. You've got Android or Apple. But one of the things I want to do is pull up an application that I have installed on all three of these called Geekbench. Now that allows you to kind of do a benchmark test across all three. But one thing that I'm going to do right off the bat is I'm going to go right back to home, and I'm going to go to each one's task manager respectively and close and remove all programs so that there's, you know, nothing running in the background that could give us, you know, misleading information as far as the test goes. Now we'll come over here to the One X, open its task manager, and go ahead and stop all the back processors. Now of course the big difference between the One X and the S3 is the S3 is going to have 1.6 gigabytes of RAM, where the One X is going to have, I believe it's right under 700. Yes, 672 megabytes of RAM. So we'll go over here to our Apple and do the same thing, and we'll go ahead and close out of all these open applications in the app drawer. Okay, now that I have the Geekbench software launched on all versions of these three phones, so we'll just go ahead and launch and run this benchmark on all three of these, and we'll look at the results. Alright, they are probably all three getting pretty close to being done. The S3 is the first to finish. Of course, it was the first to start. And it has a total score of 1,452. We'll just give it here a moment and let these other two finish. Alright, the iPhone 4S has finished, and it has a total score of 625. So just in those two, as you can see, in this particular test, the Galaxy S3 has gotten more than twice the score of the iPhone 4S. And we're still waiting on the One X to finish its benchmark. Now I have ran this test a few times before I shot this video, and for some reason the One X takes an extremely long time to run this Geekbench 2 software. I'm not really sure why it takes so long, but it does tend to take about 2 to 3 times the amount of time that it does on any other device that I have tested. Alright, now it has finished. So you can see we have the Galaxy S3 with a total score of 1452, the HTC One X with a total score of 681, and the iPhone 4S with a total score of 625. Now, take those numbers for what they are. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and set this iPhone 4S to the side, because these next two tests, I actually don't have any version of it for the Apple software. What I'm going to run is the Quadrant Standard, but before I do that, there again I'm going to go into the Task Manager and make sure I've cleared everything out of both phones. So I have no processes running. Head back home, launch the Quadrant Standard on both of these, and we'll go ahead and do a run full benchmark. Now, one thing you can notice while we're waiting for these two to run, if you look at the black on the HD Super AMOLED as opposed to the One X's screen, you can see it has a much deeper black, where the black on the One X is a little more gray. So the contrast ratio on the Galaxy S3 does seem to be a little higher than the contrast ratio of the One X, but that's just my personal opinion. Some people will prefer the screen on the One X over the Samsung, and some people will prefer the Samsung. I'm not really here to pick sides. I'm just here to present this to you. You guys make the decision on your own. They seem to be running this test about neck and neck as far as speed and frame rates. Both seem to be about the same. Alright, let's see. The One X has got a total score of 4991, and the Galaxy S3 has a total score of 4993. So let's go ahead and we'll go back on both of these and we'll run it again. My scores tend to vary on the Quadrant Standard. Every time I run it, you tend to get a different score, so I like to run it at least twice to give you kind of a comparison. So in the last one, the S3 squeaked out ahead just barely above the One X in its total score, but we'll give it a few moments here and we'll see what we've got. Alright, for the second time, the HTC One X has got a total score of 4940, and the Galaxy S3 has a total score of 4961. That tends to be the norm. It tends to squeak out just ahead of the One X. So hopefully that has answered most of your questions as far as the shootout between the three devices. Now, the big comparison between the Android users are going to be between the Galaxy S3 or the HTC One X. Which should I buy? Both of these are going to be excellent phones, whichever one you decide to buy. Both of these are on AT&T, and they both retail for $199 with a 2-year contract. They both have an 8 megapixel camera. They have the same processor. Where the S3, in my opinion, really outshines the One X is the fact that you have expandable storage, where you do not have expandable storage on the One X. And the other real nice feature on the S3 is you do have a removable battery, whereas the One X you cannot access the battery. So all in all, those are going to be personal preferences. They both have an 8 megapixel camera. They both have Android ice cream sandwich. So all in all, it's going to be up to you. They're both excellent phones. That has been my comparison between the AT&T Samsung Galaxy S3, the AT&T HTC One X, and the AT&T Apple iPhone 4S. And this has been Roger with iGadgetGeek.